question is for JT. When discourse isn't rational, and your hope is that people will be more rational, why isn't taking the opportunity to model reason then a better choice than confrontation or mockery, which are not necessarily rational examples themselves?
Repeat the question, please.
Basically, if you want people to be more rational, I think the diplomatic argument would be being diplomatic is often an example of being rational, whereas being confrontational or mocking somebody is not necessarily an example of being rational. So I think what the question means is, aren't you being a bad example?
I don't think being a firebrand necessarily excludes being rational at all. I mean, it's the whole ad hominem fallacy. You're a dumbass, and that's your whole argument. That's completely different than something like, if someone says to you, you don't have a baseball, and you say, you're a dumbass, I do so. That's an ad hominem attack. If they say, you don't have a baseball, and you're like, yeah, it's right here in my left hand, you dumbass. That's an argument just with, an insult on the end. But you have to make the argument. Your anger shouldn't supersede the fact that you're articulating a good argument. You just have to find some ways to make their lack of effort sting, and that's the whole point. So I think you do model rationalization. You also model a disdain for people who are being irrational or intellectually lazy, which I think is a good thing. Do I want rational conversation? Yes. I would love it if every conversation came down to who was being the most reasonable. But usually that's not how it works. And when it doesn't work, we have to find other ways of convincing people to allow new ideas into their head, and the introduction of informative social controls like that is a really good way to do it.
Can I comment on that real quick? I think it's actually really good to model as a diplomat for two reasons. For one, especially in the religion culture war, it directly contradicts the narrative of many religious people that they expect you to be angry with God and that you're just lashing out, and that's really what's underlying your argument, and that it's not actually the argument. And two, I mean, how often do we hear about Richard Dawkins' ego rather than his brilliant explanations of evolution? I mean, that comes up, the ego of atheists comes up a lot more, it seems to me, and I guess that's an anecdote, than his brilliant explanations. And I think that's a serious problem when people aren't talking about the arguments, they're talking about egos and politics.